Hello, my Teaserking family. I feel like my cousin Vinny, six times the charm. So this is the third time I'm trying to do this, motherfucker. And I can tell, like, I normally have people watching, especially when I talk football. And I didn't see anybody watching and no likes. And it was only on for 2 minutes, yet I'm talking for a half hour. And so it gets very frustrating. So let's see. Let's make sure this one's working. Although this one should be working. Okay, this looks like it's working.
Okay, this looks like it's working.
Okay,
this looks like it's.
Yeah, it looks like it's working. All right. Okay, so let's repeat what we just did. It gets frustrating. Fortunately, this isn't like my economics one where I really get into it for an hour and a half, and it's just it sucks when you have to repeat it. So let's go through it again. So gold, what was gold? Just a quick, because we always do gold. And let's see, where are we? So gold is at 28.59, silver 32.24. So gold had gotten to 28.62, so it's hanging in there. Not a problem. We know it'll go higher. All right. Let's go to the Super Bowl. We got Kansas City 1 in 48.5. We've given a score of 30-27. Let's go review again why we think that. So there was a Joe Rogan and the guys explaining how he picks, and then I'm lucky, and it's like, what the fuck? So I got to watch that episode just to see what he's doing. So I break it down. Both teams are 8 teams. We break it down. Both have 18 defenses, so it should be a very even game, which makes us want to take the underdog. I've already bet Philly plus 7.5, and I've gone over 48.5 or over 42.5. Definitely game will be in the 20s, which puts it at 22, 24 is 46. We only need 42.5. And I can easily see this being a little higher scoring. Philly can score with Barkley, KC with Mahomes. If they're down, he'll score for you. I don't think Philly's defense is all that. It's a pretty good defense. I've been winning betting it under most of the year. Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they kept it under. I think Washington. I don't know if they played Washington. Philly played Washington, but one game was 36-33, and then last week was 55-23. So they played two overs with Washington. And Washington got 23 on them, the Rams 22. So that puts KC getting 27 or so. My score 30-27, Kansas City. If it's close, it should be a close game. At the end, I see Kansas City winning. I think Philly will stay in there with Barkley. Even if they key him, I don't think they can stop him. He's too good. So I think that takes care of that. KC with Mahomes, Kelsey always can get open somehow. How they don't put him in a box and one like in basketball, where you play the zone, but then you just keep a guy on Kelsey. I don't know why it's so hard to cover the guy. I know he does a lot of basketball where he's boxing you out, but still, he just seems so wide open. Again, both good defenses, 18. too much talent for Philly to get blown out here. And obviously with Mahomes, they're not going to get blown out. So what I'm doing is I've already bet Philly in 7.5 over 42.5. And the line's gone down to 1. If Philadelphia goes 1 point favorite or 2 point favorites, I'm going to then play Kansas City in 7, 7.5, 8, and the over. The over is 48.5, so that's not going anywhere. So that's how I have to look at it. Let's just make sure I'm still live here.
Looks like it's working. Okay, this looks like it. Yeah, it looks like it's working. All right. Be with Mahomes.
Okay. I am still on. So with that said, how do I arrive at it? Mahomes is not a choke. He's a winner. So that's why I think that Mahomes will win 30-27. Barkley keeps it close. Hurts is not capable of winning the game. He's not a good passer. And if you get down to the last few minutes and you need a touchdown, you ain't getting one from Hurts. You might get one from Barkley, but if Hurts has to throw to get it down, he's not going to do it. Devontae Smith's just a choke. A.J. Brown's very good. The tight end's okay, but Barkley, he's not a receiver, so you got to run Barkley. So it becomes where Barkley will score in the red zone, and Mahomes will have to figure it out. But that's how I look at it. I do think KC wins 30-27. Somewhere in that upper 40s, lower 50s is the score I see. So no matter what, I'm going over because on a teaser, it's 42.5. And that's why we bet teasers, because it makes it a lot easier to win. And that's why we're betting. We're betting to win money. However, I stay away from the bullshit plays. Who's going to, how many first downs, what color Gatorade? I mean, who the fuck knows? Although I'm sure somebody knows because they're mixing the Gatorade so they could call their buddy, hey, Joe, I'm making orange Gatorade. Bet the orange Gatorade. I'm sure that does. So it's a lot of corruption as we see in the government here. But again, this should be a very competitive game. You have too many stars. Jalen Carter and then Barkley, you're not blowing them out. Mahomes, Kelsey, and Neil Smith or Chris Jones, whatever the guy's name is, on their time. So it's it's a very even game. So we want to take the dog. Again, we got 18 defenses. Again, Kansas City has seen Denver twice and San Diego twice, who have 18 defenses. And they played them well, especially San Diego. So they played them very well. And I think Philly, they've seen Daniels, but he's not Mahomes. He's a little different. And that's all they don't see anything in Dallas. They don't see anything in the Giants. They don't even have quarterbacks. So Washington doesn't see the same. They beat Philly. Okay, they beat the Rams with Stafford, who's pretty much kind of like a Mahomes. They beat Green Bay. Love's nowhere near a Mahomes. He's okay. They didn't play the Lions offense, although Goff's a choke. So that's how I look at it. You try to look at similar games: Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Philly, Washington, Philly, and the Rams, to get an idea of what you think will happen. Because what we're really trying to do is predict what we're going to have based on what we've seen. Who have they played? So when I said about the Lions last year, they hadn't played anybody. They played one good team, Baltimore, and they lost. Then they lost to Dallas, who really wasn't a good team. And then they played the Niners in the championship game, and they choked that one away with a 17-point lead. This is where the coach lost it for him because he didn't understand Goff's terrible. The coach lost to the Washington because the play calling was terrible. He's trying to throw, okay, does a reverse, but then he throws a wide receiver pass. What was that? Why isn't Goff throwing the ball? We know he's a choke, but why isn't he throwing? He did have 3 interceptions and a fumble. That's what the choke is, right? In the big games, you don't turn the ball over. How many times does Mahomes turns the ball over in a big game? Josh Allen does. We see Lamar, he always has his turnovers. He had like 3 turnovers. That's the that's what a choke is. They get into the big moments and they don't succeed. And not only that, they turn the ball over. So it's really difficult with them to do it like that. That's where we get the name choke. So when we go down the list, Hurts is a choke, but with Barkley, it covers up, and then Mahomes. So that's what you're looking at. And then we bet teasers because it's easier to win with the teaser. I got Philly in 7.5. That's not losing. And then it's now I got to play the total. You never want to play Philly in 7.5 and Kansas City +5 and a teaser. You play team with total and team with total. You can't play team with team because I tried that once. That was the first teaser I did. Was the Cotton Bowl, Joe Montana against Earl Campbell in 77, I believe. And I said, oh, well, I like Earl Campbell getting punched. Joe Montana's getting, I think Texas was a 1 or 2 point favorite. Wow, I got Joe Montana an 8. Wow, that's a lock. I got Earl Campbell and it was 5 or 6. I said, wow, that's a good bet. And then Notre Dame killed them. And then from that on, I said, I'm never doing that in the same bet. So I took Montana. So the key was taking Montana with maybe Michigan. And then if I wanted Earl Campbell, to play him with Ohio State or something. But never in the same game because it's just too easy to get a 10-point win and then your teaser's fucked. So I never do that. So I more than likely take Joe Montana with the over and things like that. And so you have certain quarterbacks, there's going to be points. We know with Barkley, there's going to be points. KC's defense is good, but not that good. And then we know Philadelphia is good, but you're not stopping Mahomes. So that's what you look at. You look at other games that are similar. Philadelphia and the Rams. Stafford got 22. Okay. But Philly scored 28 on the Rams. All right. The 55 against Washington, forget about it. They don't have the defense. But then you look at Philly's defense, and Daniels put up 23 points. And then at the end, they just started going for it on 4th down. That's where it got lopsided. The coach was in over his head, the Washington coach. I don't like Dan Quinn. He was terrible at Atlanta. It's just, when you get Daniels falls in your lap or Penix falls in your lap, all of a sudden you're a better quarterback, a better coach. So that's really how you pick the game. You look at the defense, 18 defenses. Who's the quarterback? How's the matchup? Are they going to be able to move? How do they play other strong teams? Kansas City, 18 defense San Diego, 18 defense Denver, and they beat them both. And, they scored in the 20. They were a good game. They were close games. But they were able to move on both those defenses. The last game doesn't count because nobody played because they had already clinched, and Denver won 38-0. So you can't even look at that game. And that's what you have. So against 18 defenses, they're about low 40s. But being a Super Bowl, they will find a way to score a little bit more. And that's what you see with Philly. The division sucked. Washington really didn't have a strong defense. So you looked at them against Baltimore, they put up in the mid-20s. The Rams, mid-20s. So they're going to score mid to upper 20s. And then it's just simply take the dog. So if Philly goes -1, you take Kansas City in 7 and the over. Right now, the dog was Philly getting 1.5. We got 7.5. I love that bet. And then it's just simply if we get Kansas City, and I love KC with the dog with Mahomes. The draft, I always question them taking linemen. So I was talking to nobody for 25 minutes just before. And you have the Boise running back Gentry, and you have Scadaboo. And I think there's the Iowa running back. All these running backs should be taken in the top 10 picks because, as you saw with Minnesota, Detroit, they had the ball inside the 10 on, I think, 3 or 4 possessions, and they never ran the ball. The offensive coordinator should be fired because he's an idiot. How are you going to try to pass the ball? And they're blitzing Darnold every play, and yet you still ran passes at the 5-yard line, and there's no room to run it. The end zone's 10 yards. You got 15 yards. The speed's gone. Jefferson could have had one. It was a bad pass, and another one he wasn't ready for. But he did manage to get open for two of them. But generally, if you got Scatterboo, you give him the ball twice, touchdown. You got the Iowa guy, you got Boise guy, Gentry, give him the ball twice, touchdown. And that's what you have. Georgia, their running was weak. Alabama, their running was weak. This is Tennessee's problem is they don't normally have good running back. Although I did like Sampson. He's probably a good running back from Tennessee. I don't know, Texas, so this is what you have. And you have too much passing. You can't win big games passing. You got to win it because they're going to blitz you, and you just see what happens, right? And that's where you go. So you should get the running back because when you get the ball inside the 10-yard line, you need to run it at least twice. And one of them you can run the Dave Casper play. So second down, you play action pass, but they have to respect a Scatterboo. They've got to play him, and then the tight end sneaks in the back like Casper used to, and touchdown. But you got to give the ball to Scatterboo 2 or 3 times, you'll get your touchdown. If you keep throwing, there's nowhere to throw it. There's 8 guys in the end zone within 5 yards of each other. Where are you throwing the ball? How did the offensive coordinator? Yet they are. The Lions, now they got Ben Johnson, most of the Bears. What do you think? The Bears are going to get better? You'll see Ben Johnson's really not that good. It's the Jordan effect. He had good receivers and good running backs and a good line. So, and a moron could call, well, if they got 8 guys in the box, throw the ball. And if they got 7, run the ball. I mean, that's about all they did. That's not a genius. These little reverses, okay, they worked, whatever. We'll see how good the Lions offense is this year. I think they'll be lucky to go 500 this year without their coordinators. Now, the defensive coordinators, the problem is they hired the linebacker coach to be the defensive coordinator. You can't do that. You got to have a defensive coordinator. I would have liked to get Saleh. He went back to the Niners. So look for the Niners to be very good next year. And that's my point also with these coordinators becoming coaches. Saleh goes, great defensive coordinator at San Francisco, goes to the Jets and does a head coach. And he looks terrible. And then he crawls back to the Niners. Well, where are you going? Spagnuolo's got it. Now, he did try head coaching, and he was terrible. And then he came back, and now he's a defensive coordinator, and that's what he is. And the Chiefs signed him to a 5-year deal. The Lions should have signed Ben Johnson to a 5-year deal. I don't know why they didn't. And I don't know why. Well, he needs a chance to be the head coach. I think he ran to Chicago, and the other guy ran to the Jets. I think there's a problem in Detroit because these guys are running out, right? So that's a red flag that they don't want to stay. To go to the Bears and to go to the Jets, really? Yeah, probably not. I think they'll both flop. I was reading where Des Bryant thinks that Schottenheimer, the Dallas coach, he's a flop. The offensive coordinator is terrible. Dallas is going to be in big trouble. They don't have a quarterback. Prescott, their quarterback should be Cooper Rush. He's better. They won a lot more games with him. You got Des Bryant, but that's it. Or CD Lamb, I'm sorry. So again, how do you pick games? You pick games based on the defense, based on the first thing is you got to understand the teams. Now, for most people, it would be very confusing. For me, it takes 20 minutes. I can look at the numbers, I can look at the matchups, I can look at the prior games, and I can tell you pretty much what type of team it is. So I can tell you they're both KC and Philly are both A teams. They both have good defenses, but very strong offenses. So this will not be an under game. If it was if this was San Diego, who has a good defense and a decent offense, or Denver, I would say maybe it's an under. You got to look at the quarterback. Atlanta, an over with Penix. Washington, an over with Daniels. Bo Nix is close. Hopefully he gets better next year. Um, but you got to look at the big defensive teams. Denver, San Diego. Those are where you get your unders. It's more in football in college where you get like an Iowa who just can't um, do anything. Let's see. There it goes. So that's what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand the team. And we can take this to stocks, we can take it to gold, we can take it to investing. If you buy a stock, you've got to understand the company. What's their competition? Are they making money? What do they look like in the market? Coca-Cola, they got a problem. Nobody wants the sugar. The Diet Coke's not good for you. So you look at changes made. The cereals are not good for you. So you start analyzing the companies as you would understand teams. So in football, as I was saying, in college, you can see the under team, Iowa, last year, great defense, no offense. So you're really judging the quarterback gives you a definition of the team. And then you look at the defense and we look at the scores on defense. Oh, they're giving up 12 points a game, like Notre Dame. Then you look at, Ohio State, an over team. Now, when they played Michigan, we did bet the game under and we won because Michigan couldn't score, but they had a good defense, and Ohio State had a good defense, and they choked. I mean, that's where you just shake your head. Ohio State 13-10, they lose to Michigan, and then they go put up 40 points on Oregon and put up 30 points on Notre Dame, and you're like, where was this against Michigan? So it's almost, is it fixed, is what you almost think. So that's how you look at investments. And now there's poker. I was watching poker on TV. It's the same thing. You hide your hand. You don't show what you have to the opponent. So you check a lot. Somebody who bets a lot's pretty much bluffing most of the time because you don't want to expose it unless you have one pair. I saw the guy had ace jack and a jack hit, and you're kind of like, he didn't bet it. Okay, here's the example. Guy had a pair of nines, guy had ace jack. The flop comes jack 8-6 or something. The guy with the ace jack should have went all in because I don't want you to catch me. It's not a strong hand, one pair. You didn't even hit the aces. The guy pre-flop had bet. So what does he have? Does he have kings or queens? We'll see, but I'm going to make a big bet with my ace jack. And if he's got nines, as he had, he's going to fold. But what happened is he didn't make the big bet. I think he checked, or he made a very small bet. And then the guy hit the third nine on the turn, and then the jacks are fucked. But the jacks, how can they fold? Now, the problem is it was kind of a straight board, and then so the trip nines bet pretty big on the river so the ace jack could leave. But when you have the power, at least in poker, when you have the top pair, so it's ace jack and it comes jack 8-6, when you have that, you've got to immediately go with the you've got to immediately make a big bet. And then that's when you show your hand. You're saying, I got the jack, I got to make a big bet because I don't want nines or eights or sixes calling me. and then they flop. And that's what happens. That's how you play pocket aces. So I play pocket aces. I make a pretty big pre-flop bet. Now, for me, I'm not playing thousands of dollars. So I'm playing 300, or if I'm in Vegas, playing 300 or 400. And I get aces, my bet. I don't want the whole table in on it. So I will bet maybe 50. Here, I'll bet 25 or 30. It's a different atmosphere in Michigan. But in Vegas, I'm betting $50. And I'll probably get 3 callers because people like a big pot because they get the odds and they want to win. And then I see what happens on the flop. Now, if it's 3 spades, I take it easy. If it's 8, 9, 10, I take it easy. But if it's kind of mixed, a heart and a spade and a 6 and a queen, I then come on and bet maybe 100. And then I'm waiting to see, depends where I'm sitting. If it's check, check, and then comes to me for 100, and then one of the check raises me, I fold 100% of the time because he hit trips and he's just fucking with me with the check because there's no other reason he check raises me. If he just calls, I got him. If he could fold, most likely he'll fold. I want him to fold. It's not about letting all 5 of the cards come out. It's about winning the hand. So if you have the upper hand, I got aces and you know it's queen 10 4 with 2 different suits. I'm not letting you catch. And at best case, you got queens, you're not check raising me. So that's what I do. And I basically, that's how you prevent getting killed. If somebody check raises me, I fold. Why are you check raising me? So you ask the questions. But that's how you win playing poker. If you've got the lead and you don't have a very strong hand, and aces are not a very strong hand after the flop, especially after all 5 cards have been exposed, aces are nothing. You've got to, at that point, you get out. So you've got to bet strong. Now, if I hit a set of aces, now I don't bet. Now I hide my hand unless I see 4 diamonds coming out. Then I have to protect. So there's the protection. But as long as you're in the lead and you got trip aces and there's no 3 suits, there's no 8, 9, 10, then you slow play it because you don't want to expose the strength of your hand. I did that in one hand. I had aces. I think somebody had kings or queens. So the kings or queens bet, I just call, and I get like 3 or 4 people in. I got aces, and then, let's see the flop. And the flop, there's an ace. So now I got a set of aces. The woman, I see bets. I call. I don't raise. So nobody knows what I got. Somebody then hits 2 pair and raises. The lady folds who had the kings or queens, and I think he might have even gone all in. I call because I got trip aces. You can't beat me. And I flip it over, and the guy came up to me and shook my hand. He says, great hand. I said, well, I'm sorry, that I took all your money. And I don't, it's like I like to play to win, but, and he says, there's nothing I can do. And he had like queens and 10. So if a queen hit or a 10 hit, I got aces full. And so my full house is going to be higher than his full house any way he looks at it. So he knew he couldn't win. And it was just gratifying. But you didn't know I had a set of aces because I never publicized it. The lady bet, I called because there was no reason. That's a strong hand. If I just had aces, maybe I don't call. Or maybe I just call her. Let's say she has kings and I got aces and she bets. I still probably call. I'm probably not going expanding the bet. But with a set of aces on the flop, I'm not betting anything. I'm just checking. That also happened to me one night. I got really hot and I got quads twice in about 10 hands. And I didn't make one bet and everybody was all in and I got quads. I'll never forget this hand. I get quad 8s and the first guy bets. The second guy goes all in. I call. Another guy goes all in. Another guy. And I didn't make one bet. And, and I don't know what the hell they're betting on, possible straights or flushes. And I had quads. I loved it. you've got to be careful with the board. If a pair comes out, you assume full house. That's the best way to play. Again, you're trying to win, and you really don't want the hand to go all 5 cards. You want to end it after the flop most of the time, unless you got the set of aces. Then you want the hand to be played out, but you got to be careful about straights and flushes. That's it. And so that's kind of how you gamble at poker. At craps, you watch the dice if they're hot. If there's a lot of betting, if there's a lot of numbers coming out, bet the numbers. If there's a lot of 2s and 3s and 7s coming out, you don't bet the numbers. I was in Vegas, and my friend's uncle was there, and so I was, I don't know, he wasn't that nice of a guy. He kept saying, "Oh, I'll take you to lunch," and then he never did. And I was like, "Oh, fuck off! I can afford my own lunch." So we're playing craps, and I'm noticing the table's cold. 7 out, 7 out, 7 out. So I go play. I bet the don't. The guy's so stupid, he bets the numbers. He's not saying that I'm betting the don't. He's not giving me credit for knowing what the fuck's going on and reading streaks. So I boom, 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 7 out, maybe 3 rolls. He's all mad because he's betting the numbers, and I'm going, what the fuck you betting the numbers for? It's been 7ing out. I'm going with the table. If the table's throwing a bunch of 7 outs, I'm betting 7 outs. If the table 6 and 8 and 9 and 5 and 6 and 10, then I'm betting the numbers. So you go with whatever the streak is. As I tell you in roulette, if it's red hitting, I'm betting red. If it's black hitting, I'm betting black. Or back rack, same thing. If player keeps hitting, I'm betting player. If bank keeps hitting, I'm betting bank. You just go with the throw. You don't want to think. You can't think. You can't figure it out. If red hits the roulette wheel, you just keep betting it. So that's kind of how you bet casinos. We talk about stocks. Stocks are very, well, first of all, let's talk investments. So you have money, what do you do with it? And as I've talked earlier, there's a bunch of Ponzi schemes and schemes going on where they're being manipulated. So you've got to understand that going in. Where in Vegas, roulette coming out red or black is pretty much coming out red or black. Even if the wheel's done, it's still, if it's red or black, or back rack, if it's player or bank, it is what it is. Even though it's fixed, it's still randomly coming out. With the stocks, you got to be careful because the Goldman Sachs are going to sit there and play around with you, and they're going to run the price up, and then they're going to dump it, and you're fucked. So you got to be very careful playing stocks. I really don't like playing stocks. Like I said, the only stock I'll play is gold, and I'll watch it at 10 o'clock drop, and then at 10:30 when it starts going up, as I showed you the graph. So you can see what I'm going to do. I can see at 10 o'clock, it always drops. Okay. And then I wait, and then it starts going up a little after 10, 28.42. Now I'm buying. And so I would have bought at 28.42, and it ends up, it's now 28.63. So I would have made $20 by really playing the game where wait till the 10 o'clock drop, and then when it starts going up, you can see what happens. It keeps going. And occasionally there'll be some downs and ups, but that's really what you do with that. That's how you win at stocks. You have to look at stocks as like it's a football game, or it's craps, or it's back rack. That's how you play stocks. It's fixed, and you have to get in and out. If you think you know what you're doing, or your financial planner knows what's going to happen, run to the exit, because he has no idea. Like I said, the guy told me to buy Coke, and he just drew a line. Oh, here's what's going to happen. And as soon as he did that, I just walked out. Yeah, probably don't want to listen to you. You're probably too stupid to talk to. And again, keep in mind, these financial planners are salesmen. They want your commission. They do not care about you. They do not want you to make money. They don't care. And if you try to sell, they'll say, oh, well, I'll tell you what, you're trying to sell. I got another stock for you. They just want to keep you in the game. They want you in paper, and that's the thing. And now what we understand is you buy gold and silver to get out of paper. Even though gold and silver is price fixed, we see with this everybody buying physical and bricks, we see what's going on. 2863, because the demand, it's now in China's court, is buying, buying, buying. And so that's all we can do. And we keep going from there. But I've been telling you that for 3 years because the price was 1800. And I knew the price was going to go up, just like I know the price is going to go up from here. But now it's getting steep. Now it's going to cost you almost $3,000 for an ounce at the coin store. So at 1800, I'm telling you to buy then, you're buying cheap, which you did. And now you're reaping the rewards. Can you still buy some? Well, if you're working or if you have, but most of my money's in gold. So the only way I can really take a big buy is to, have a car like this and sell it and get $5,000, and then I can buy an ounce. I can't even buy 2 ounces of gold with it. I do have some very nice. I've shown you Bobby Orr, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays. That maybe I get them graded. Maybe they're PSA 10s. The Montana rookie, the Rice rookie. If I can get a PSA 10 in those, and I can get $100,000. Now I'm back buying another 20, another let's say 3,000, 30 ounces is 90,000. So I can now buy 33 ounces of gold with the $100,000. At the time my buddy went, he bought 45 ounces. And at the time I did it, my $100,000 bought me 50 ounces because it was under 2,000. So that's the point of it. Now you've got to be able to analyze what's going on and understand it. And that's where my masters made me a lot of money, and it's making you a lot of money. If you cannot afford it, you buy silver now, because silver will go up dramatically. If you want to buy gold, I'm advising buy 1/10 of an ounce or 1/4 of an ounce. You're still going to make money, but do you have $3,000 to buy an ounce? And you don't. That's the problem. But silver is $32. You're going to pay $35 an ounce. You buy 10 ounces for $350. You have that. Not only that, but the $350 is not worth anything. So that's how you invest now. You have to get out of the paper, right? And get into gold and silver because the paper is worthless. It's as simple as that. And when you listen to these guys on YouTube, you just have to laugh. One guy brought up this guy, what was his name? So they talk about this guy. Well, this guy's doing this, or this guy's doing that. And what was his name? Luke Groman. So I go, who the hell is Luke Groman? You're listening to him. You're using his name, the guy doing the show. And I says, who's Luke Groman? And I go, is Luke Groman a Keynesian? And I can't get an answer. And then it kind of says, well, he's a macro economist. He's a naturalist. I mean, it's not even real. It's like you're either a boy or a girl. There's nothing else. You're either Austrian economist or a Keynesian economist. That's it. There's two types. Either the government, you want the government to run the market, or you want the individual to run the market. That's it. Everything else is just bullshit, and it's probably Keynesian, and they don't want to be known as Keynesian economists. So I'm assuming he's a Keynesian. And then I started watching him on YouTube, and he's talking Bitcoin. So I know he's a Keynesian, because only an Austrian would never believe that Bitcoin's real. So only Keynesians would talk about Bitcoin. So he's a Bitcoin guy. So they bring up his name. Well, he's saying gold's going to be X or 20, 30, 40,000. Because he's taking the money supply divided by the gold in Fort Knox. He's saying, well, there's this much dollars, so gold will be, 30,000 an ounce. And that's not how you do it. It's based on the market. Right now, it's 28.3 based on derivatives. But once it breaks, then the free market should price gold. And that's where I'm coming up with a much higher price, not dividing any formula, not saying, well, there's 8,000 tons in Fort Knox and there's, $160 trillion. So this is what per dollar. You can't do that because there's no gold in Fort Knox. And it's not how you get a price. You get a price based on the market. What is the market valuing gold at? That's how you get the price. What is the market value my homes? Yeah, there's 50 of them, but that's goes into its Mahomes. It's 50 count. What's the market value this at? That's how you get the price. The Montana rookie card, it's 100,000 because it's a PSA 10 Montana. It's limited, but the market determines the 100,000. The market determines that 68 mantle card is $75,000 for a PSA 9 mantle. The market came up with the price, and that's how your gold and silver is going to get priced by the market once we get away from these derivative bullshits. So really, that's what you're looking at, and that's how you invest. And you've got to understand the game. You've got to understand your risk and reward. You've got to understand how they price it. We understand gold's priced by derivatives, not by the market. So we make the determination, is it going to stay priced by derivatives or is it going to go to the market? And then we see BRICS to the rescue going, it's going to go free market. And they're going to revalue it. And Trump's got to pay the debt. So he's going to make the gold price go up, which we don't know. And they're saying, well, is Trump going to just make it 15,000 for gold in 2 weeks? Or is he going to slowly, it's 5,000, it's 10, it's 15. This we don't know because it's not free market. All we can say is we know gold's going to be much higher, and we know gold's the only out from the paper. So you understand the game. This like poker. I got trip aces. I'm not betting. Red's hitting. I'm going to bet red. Baccarat. The player's hitting. I'm going to bet player. So you understand the concept. That's how you gamble. That's how you invest. Stocks. You understand they're fixed. So do you really want to get into Coke and Pepsi and Amazon and Tesla? No, Tesla's not going anywhere. The electric car, nobody wants. So if you understand that, why would you invest in Tesla? He's got space. Why would you? Who the fuck wants space? He's got the satellite. After hearing, my friend works for the DOD, the one who's scared to get out of the 401k. And he says, Musk is like an idiot. He sent out the same letter he sent to Twitter when he said, we're at a fork in the road, and 80% of the employees were like, oh, he says the same thing. The guy just said the same thing, same exact letter for the DOD. We're at the fork in the road. Then he's had his guys come in and they're like scamming the networks, and they're like the Russians. They're taking over and going into the networks illegally. But Musk doesn't sound like he knows what he's doing. As I said, they let me go from whatchamacallit yesterday, right? And yet I'm probably the smartest guy there. I got the master's in economics and corporate finance, years at GM, Ford, Mercedes. You let me go. I was smarter than my boss. I was smarter than all the Indians who worked there. And I was certainly smarter than the other guy they kept. And so you just don't understand why you're letting me go. And the guys you're keeping, I'm 10 times smarter than. Much highly more productive and much smarter. My boss was Brazilian. You couldn't even understand the guy. What was he doing there? Why would you keep him and let me go? I was 10 levels higher than him. So this is where you have the problem. They don't know what they're doing. And, it's like the NFL draft. They're drafting linemen and not Scadaboo and not the guy from Boise and not the guy from Iowa. The guys you should be drafting, you're not. And then you wonder why you suck every year. So when you look at the mock draft, if Tennessee drafts the guy from Colorado, the receiver cornerback guy, what, you think he's going to play in the NFL every down? Are you insane? Dion played cornerback and he played receiver maybe 5 to 10 plays a game when they needed it. Charles Woodson at Michigan played cornerback, and he played 5 to 10 plays at receiver. Ran a punt back. But that was in the big games, not every game. You can't do it in the pros. First of all, is he skilled enough to do that? Is he a very good cornerback? I don't know. Is he a good receiver? I don't know. He's no Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, that's for sure. Defensively, is he a good cornerback? I don't know. The fact he can play both positions, but is he any good at either position? But, a lot of guys can play two positions. The offensive lineman plays center guard or tackle. You've got guys who are good running backs and receivers. So you got to understand that. And that's what you have. So you basically need the logic. You need to understand how you're investing and what you're investing in. You got to understand the stock game, the real estate trust. Tack on Wall Street, guy loses 60,000. Why am I in there? You've got to understand, wait a minute, they gave loans in 97 to people that couldn't pay it back. Maybe I shouldn't be in real estate. Now, again, you have to understand that. I did. You have to understand that. Now, I had no way of this shorting that they did, that Batman did in that movie where he shorted it. I thought his acting was terrible in the movie. He was playing this goofy guy. It's like, dude, be Batman, be stoic. Don't be the goofy guy who plays drums or, sings or, dude, you don't look good doing that. So he was able to short it because he had Wall Street Connect. I didn't have that, so I couldn't short it, but I knew not to be in it because I knew what was going to happen. So I'm very good at going, if A happens, B happens, C happens. That's how I think. And you can see it with all these companies. They're all missing the big picture. The dollars collapse. So if you're staying in dollars, how the fuck is your company going to survive if you're not getting out of the dollars in the first place? So this Apollo wants to sell the ignition part of Tenneco. What the fuck's the difference? If you get dollars, they're not worth anything. I would sell it for gold, or I would sell it for dollars and immediately buy gold with it. But I wouldn't even be selling it. I would just I would take my earnings and buy gold with it. That's what you would, because the dollar's not worth anything, but none of these guys get it. GM, Ford, it doesn't matter. They don't get the dollar's worthless. And it's a worldwide thing that the dollar and every currency is worthless because nothing's backed by gold. That's step one. That's introductory to Austrian economics. Is the dollar good? And, if it's not backed by gold, the dollar's worthless starting, right? So the dollar's worthless regardless. So if you don't understand that, that's the first thing you need to understand. The Titanic hit the iceberg, the water's going to come in, the ship's going to sink. So you can go A, B, C, D. I need to get on the lifeboat. Goodbye. Here, if the dollar's not backed by gold, it's going to hit the iceberg, it's going to sink, and you need to get on the lifeboat, which is gold and silver. And so that's what's happening, and it's all over the world now. Everybody has no other option, every country, but to go into gold and silver. The Russians and the Chinese and the BRICS countries are smart enough to realize Austrian economics and go, well, fuck, the dollars are going out. We don't want that. We're buying gold, and they're buying gold hand over fist, but nobody questions it. Nobody goes, why are they buying gold? Maybe I should react to it. No, I'm going to stay in my 401k. So this is the problem. People are blinded. They're not rational. They're not asking the question, why are BRICS going into gold and silver? Maybe I should. They're not asking that. No, I'm in my 401k. We're in America. Nothing can happen. It's been since 1971 and nothing's happened, and not in my life. I'm hearing that. It won't go out in my lifetime. Well, unless you're going to die in the next 6 months, it's going to happen in your lifetime. They're just, because there's nobody wants your dollar. It's worthless. Everybody wants gold, and that's exactly what's happening. Why would I want this toilet paper when I can have gold? That's really the whole point of it. So that's what you're looking at is you need to get out of the dollar and into gold. And you can see BRICS doing it. So you need to copy them, but you need to understand why. And it all comes back to understanding in football the teams, and poker the player, in roulette and backrack. You're looking in stocks. You've got to understand the company. Does this company make money? And stop, get away from the fanfare. You watch Bloomberg. Oh, this company is going to do that. Do they have earnings? Who's their competition? What is their market? Can they sell the product? Is there demand? Like electric cars. Nobody wants one. You're trying to sell it for 80, 90 grand. And you got 7% interest rate. Ain't nobody buying any car, more or less an electric car. Well, they'll buy it because X, Y, and Z. No, nobody's going to buy an electric car. I was never going to buy one, and now Trump's in, and he's now saying you don't need to, and reducing the limits that GM and Ford they only need 30-mile-an-hour cars. So you then understand the playing field, which makes it much easier to do that. Luke must be on vacation. I haven't seen Luke for like a week. Bobby Bo, I think I saw him this morning. I was on from 10:30 to about noon, and then I went swimming. Anyway, but I wanted to do the Super Bowl. I want to keep them separate, so I'm doing that. But that's what you got to be is get into the gold because the dollar's crashing. And I picked a football game based on the defense, based on the stars, based on a little of the coach. Reed's a better coach, Mahomes a better quarterback, Barkley's a better running back. The defensive line is the same. KC's got a strong one, and Philly's got a strong. So that's the neutral. They both have very good defenses, but the offenses should be good enough to do. Okay, so we break it down, and that's what I do. Is I study every team. That's why early in college football, I don't know the teams because with this NIL, they've changed so many players that you've got to. I don't know who this quarterback is. Let's see him play. And you want to see him against good competition. I don't care what he does against Pacific. I want to see what he does against USC or UCLA. And then you got new coaches. And then, so you've got to get data for 4 or 5 games with the new coaches. The coaches that aren't new, like Michigan always had, Bo, you knew what you were getting. Now the Ohio State coach is now the offensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders. Let's see, they got Coach Pete, and now they got whatchamacall from Ohio State, Chip O'Neil, or Chip Beck, or whatever his name is, as the offensive coordinator. Let's see if they get Russell Wilson. They got Crosby, but they got Coach Pete. So now we'll see. That's why I was excited with Denver with Sean Payton, and we were betting them a lot. And now we have, let's see, Denver ended up, Denver was 16-1 in a teaser, and then they got killed by Buffalo. So they went 16-2 with Sean Payton and Bo Nix in his rookie year. Wait till next year. So Denver's a hot team to bet on. Washington was 15-2. Beat Tampa 16-2, beat Detroit 17-2, and then got blown out by Philly 17-3 with Daniels. Penix just played a few games with Atlanta, so we don't really have that. But that's what you're looking. You're looking the coach and the quarterback, and then see, we're ahead of the game because we already know, we're going to be betting Atlanta all the time and Washington all the time and Denver all the time, because they got the quarterback. And then there's Mahomes, and then we stay away from Lamar unless it's a weak team, and then Josh Allen, so what you got. And then the teams that have the bad quarterbacks, like Darnell, and I don't know how good Love is, and Golf's terrible. You then start betting against those teams. Detroit, everybody thinks they're hot. They were they were 14-3, and then they lose to Washington, so they were 14-4. It really wasn't that good as they were. They got lucky to beat Houston, but then they lose to Buffalo, and they lost Tampa, and then they lost a couple other games, or they just were big. The Washington game. So you start understanding what's going on, and that's really what you're trying to get comfortable and understand the teams. So with that said, that's how you invest and pick. You've got to understand the situation. You've got to read the situation. You got to know, oh wait, do I want to bet a stock? Do you even want to play stocks? Like I said, maybe the gold stock where at 10 o'clock every day it drops, and then about 10:30 it starts going up. Okay, well that's irrelevant, but it's not in every stock. It's only in gold and silver where they're fucking around with it. But they're fucking around with it, so you can take advantage of the bullshit 10 o'clock derivative. So that's what you do. We buy gold because we know the dollar's gone, and we know gold's going up, and we know bricks, and we know supply and demand. If there's high demand, price will go up. If it's limited, we have to know, is it limited? And that's the other part. So you got to know enough to ask enough to then play it. So that's investments for you. That's poker, that's gambling, that's football. And again, the Super Bowl 30-27, Kansas City. So again, we've already bet Philly plus 7.5 and over. If Philly goes favorite, we then bet Kansas City is the dog. I love that. Either way, give me the points, and that's what I'll take with the over. And that's what we have. We'll get into economics tomorrow. I don't want to do 2 classes on economics. So I'm trying to break it, economics and football, and that's what I did here. But I added a little investments things. Anyway, so that's about it. So have a good night. I'll be back probably 10:30 with economics. I don't think I'll do football tomorrow. You got it today. You got the score. I don't. If I could come up with a topic, I'm watching a lot of YouTube to see what's going on. They're trying to understand the gold being shipped from London to the U.S. They're trying to understand it, and they don't understand the 8 weeks because the London gold has to be reformatted for the U.S. because the London gold's 400 ounces and the U.S. is 100 ounces. Well, you got to go to Switzerland. It's got to wait in line. Then they got to melt it down and redo it to 100 ounce, and it only can be done in Switzerland. So it takes 6, 7, 8 weeks. That's what it is. It's once you understand it, it's obvious what's happening. So it's why is it taking so long? Because it's got to go to Switzerland, you morons. It's amazing how stupid people are. But that's all that's happening. It's the U.S. is repatriating their gold to pay off the derivatives that you got to pay it. They're taking delivery. You've got to give them the gold that the Chinese and the Russians want. So you got to get the gold in and take delivery, and that's what's happening. Will we see much higher gold? Absolutely. Is there pullbacks? Absolutely not. Only in derivative world. Nobody is selling an ounce of gold. Nobody's this stupid. You might sell 1 or 2 ounces because you need money, but generally, nobody is selling their gold at these cheap prices. The prices are cheap. And again, these salesmen and the bankers are just clueless to what's really going on. And it's just Katie bar the door. You're just you got China, you got all the bricks buying it. Who's selling it? And they're buying tons. And that doesn't even affect the price. I think a little bit. They take delivery, affects the price a little bit. But me and you going to the coin store, even if we bought a ton each, it wouldn't have it. So I was doing some calculations, and a ton's 32,000 ounces of gold. And I'm like, 32 ounces times 3,000. I don't know. It's like 90 million or something like that. But it is nice seeing what happened in 1971 and what's happening now. So if I had a time machine, I'd either go back to buy gold or I'd go back to 1952 and get mantle cards and get them in mint condition, and then I would take them to PSA and have PSA 10 mantle rookies are worth a lot more than gold. That's what demand is and supply is. There are no, they're very, that's why the Montana's worth so much. There can't be 100 of them. They're very hard to get centered. And if they're not centered, they're not 10. So to get a very centered, like Bobby's card here, right? So Bobby's card is very centered, right? Look at the centering, side to side, top to bottom. But the Montana card and the Rice cards are not like this. They're way off center. And that's the problem of what Topps did. They never really, so therefore it created very limited, very few cards are perfectly centered, are 10s. And that's what has been created because they did such a bad job of quality control. So they created everything off center. So if you were lucky to get it centered, you're rich because it's Montana, it's a rookie, and it's centered. So I got one that's pretty centered. I got a Rice that's pretty centered. Can I get a 10? I could because they will go 40, 60. Will I? I don't know. Will I get it graded? I think I have to. I could be sitting on 100,000 on both those cards. I could be sitting on 200,000 and not having to work again. So we got to see. Anyway, so that's what's going on. www.teaserking.com. You want to email me? Please feel free. You'll get my email on teaserking.com. The pick's in. So if you bought, a lot of people have bought the playoffs or bought the season. The pick's out there. And let me know if you're not seeing it. But I'm giving the pick to you, so you know what it is. But yeah, it should be out there. But you don't know if it's a lock or not. You got to see what I bet. And what I bet determines your bet. And that's what you got to go. I got to check platinum for Pat. He says it's $1,000 an ounce. Is it a good investment? I don't know. I got to read up on it. I only know gold and silver because they're precious metals and they're money. And that's what I focus on, not platinum and palladium. They're limited, but it doesn't matter. There has to be more demand than limited. So in my Mahomes card, there's 50 of them, which is limited, but is there more than 50 people? Is the demand higher than 50? Because if it isn't, it doesn't matter that it's 50. Now, if there is a lot of demand for it, then it matters that it's 50. And a lot of times by making it 50, you create demand because they go, oh, Mahomes 50 count, and they'll buy it because there's Mahomes interest. But then once they see it's 50, they'll buy it just because it's limited, which is what you should do. All right. Have a good night, everybody. www.teaserking.com. Feel good. And no comments, so I don't know, but I do know I was on. So 3 times the charm. I apologize sometimes for that. It's out of my control. But the other one said 2 minutes and I was talking for 20. So this should be an hour 3, which is about what I want to be on. All right. Have a good day, everybody. www.teaserking.com. Good luck. Buy your gold and silver. You'll make a fortune.